It is 5 o'clock, and you know what that means. It is time for Barsha, episode 42, with Bedlam's artistic director, Eric Tucker. Yes, Eric.
Hello.
Hi, Eric. So happy to see you today. People are filing in as we talk. What I like to do at the beginning of every show is I sing you a little song about yourself.
Okay.
Where do you go on Mondays when you want to have fun? Well, where can you go on Mondays when your day is done? Fireside chat is where it's at. Our guests are all the best. He's an artistic director of an amazing troupe. They're a New York Times top 10 scoop. He's Eric Tucker. Help me in welcoming Eric Tucker.
Yay.
All right.
Oh my gosh. No one's ever made a song for me before.
Listen, we're so happy you're here. I'm going to tell you why. Because it is true. My little song said you are a top 10 New York Times critic pick over and over again with your amazing company, Bedlam. I'm going to just do some of the accolades. Just sit there and take it in.
Yeah. Okay.
Wall Street Journal Director of the Year, America's Best Classical Theater Director, New York Times top 10. Hamlet was the top 10 critics pick. You had a world premiere by Steven Sater, Burt Bacharach. You were a critic. It's just insane. If you look at bedlam.org, which I've put in the little scroll.
Yeah.
Eric, describe the mission of Bedlam.
Well, I mean, the mission is sort of the top of the heap is like bringing, our main concern is always like our relationship to the audience. So we like to do things that are really sort of intimate in settings where the audience is really close to us. And, we like to strip things back as much as they can, that the plays are very bare bones, very much about the text, the actors and the audience in a room together. So that's kind of that's the first part of our mission. We got known for, a lot of classic material and revitalizing classics, as they call it, and things like that. But we also do new plays but it's really about us trying to look at plays in a different way and make audiences hear them in a different way.
Okay. Can we talk about when he says different way? It's very euphemistic. He's got, I've seen these shows. First of all, you're part of everything. The actors putting on the makeup. I mean, when I saw at that gym, where was that gym down in the Village?
Oh, Sense and Sensibility at Jim at Judd's on Washington Square Park. Yeah.
And so you're part of it in this intimate way. You're seeing the actors put their makeup on, change their clothes for the next scene. You're in it. And do you always look for site-specific places? Yeah,
we do. I mean, that's a big part of it is like, what's the space going to be and does it work for that particular play? And the shaping the play into the space is very important. Yeah, for sure. Especially because we've been an itinerant company. We bop around from space to space anyway. So that allows us to make sure it fits the project or we find a space we love and then I'm like, I want to do that play in that space,
Yeah. Eric is very serious here talking to me, but he's incredibly fun in rehearsal. I just need to say. One of the great things about working with Eric Tucker that I will tell you is he allows anything to happen once in the room. He'll take ideas from anybody and then he'll decide. That is very different for a director. Directors don't all work like that.
Yeah,
is that because you're used to working in a troupe this way where the actors you trust?
I don't know. I mean, I've always been like that. Like, I just feel like if someone's in the room, I mean, people show up, like the actors want to do their work too. They want to make, they want to make choices. They want to try stuff. And I'm up for people trying anything. I always feel like my goal as a director is always to make sure the show, when I leave, when it opens, that it's theirs, that they feel like they helped devise and create it. So I want to shape it to their own strengths and weaknesses, whatever. And so I can't really plan a show very far in. I wait and then I'm in the room and then we really make it in the room.
Yes, you do
You
make it
know.
in the room. I will attest to that. Okay, I
Yeah.
want to talk about, I need to talk about Shakespeare for a minute because,
Okay.
okay, some of us, you make Shakespeare very accessible. Why? You make it modern in some way that, so I want to ask you about language. I know you're a language freak on some level. You
Yeah.
know, you
Yeah.
love language, but because some of us are scared of or put off by Shakespeare, like we don't even go to things. I mean, people like me,
Yeah.
when I
Yeah.
watch your Shakespeare, it's the most accessible, natural thing in the world. How did you always experience it like that?
Well, I try to just find actors who speak it like they're just speaking every day. And I feel like oftentimes you see people who are sort of trained in Shakespeare, or they sort of following these rules that they've grown to know, right? That and it just sounds like sort of poetry, or it doesn't even sound like they really know what they're saying, because they're not really making the thought just simple for us to understand like we are when we just talk to each other.
Right.
And I try to really find actors that will just speak the thought and loosen it up a bit around the edges, so that it doesn't, we don't, they're the rules, who decides these things? It's in English. We should be able to, and we try to have enough rehearsal with Shakespeare that we really have had time, because usually nowadays, like, you get 3 weeks of rehearsal, and if you have a lot of fight choreography and dance choreography and all this stuff they add to Shakespeare shows, you have to spend a lot of time working on that stuff, and you spend very little time on the language. And you go to Shakespeare and you don't understand it because they don't necessarily totally understand it.
Right.
And if you really just spend the time working on the language and going, what the freak am I saying? And why am I saying it? Then at least people will understand it. It doesn't matter what you're wearing in the end. Just, I want to understand what you're saying.
Okay, so conceptually, when you went in the pandemic, and I want to get back to the theater troupe and the actors who are unbelievable, you made a pivot in the pandemic.
Yeah.
Can you tell us what you did? Because I would love to show the trailer for what you did.
So we obviously, in the pandemic, theater shut down. We couldn't do live theater. And I had been thinking about this idea of like, wouldn't it be cool to take like 2 or 3 Shakespeare plays per season and make a TV show, or maybe they'd go more than one season for the ones you choose or whatever, but make a long running, like a television show that takes Shakespeare's plays and mixes them together and creates a world, like some of the great television where you immerse into this world, but just using his language. I mean, not sort of making it modern or anything like that. So the pandemic gave me like the reason to just, so I had a writing partner and we just did it. So we took King Lear, Merry Wives of Windsor, and some Merchant of Venice and just made it. We wrote 8 episodes, and I ran it by my board, and we thought, can we shoot like 1 or 2 of these episodes in the pandemic? The thing is that for us, low budget TV show or even film, you usually try to do like 1 location, like 2 or 3 actors. Well, this was like 35 actors, tons of locations, and we did it anyway, and we kept it low budget, and we were able to do it. And we ended up with 3 episodes because we had more material than we knew when we shot it. And it was fun, and it was a way for us to continue our mission, which is revitalizing Shakespeare, making it really for TV, and breaking it down so that it really felt like episode in terms of the scenes and this and that, and then combining like Lear and Merry Wives is nuts.
Oh my God!
Yeah. So that's how we pivoted.
First of all, how did you find the Windsor Hotel? That was the greatest thing I ever saw. Okay,
Oh, right.
I gotta show. Let me just show the
Okay.
trailer because it's so good.
Oh my gosh, I haven't seen it in so long.
Okay, first of all, that is Bedlam. Can everybody please applaud for that? That is unbelievable. I mean, come. Okay,
Oh yeah.
so here's the thing. You're they're all clapping. Listen, I watched it, okay? When you say adapted,
Yeah.
you also do have some language, and I wanted to know if it was improvised, you let your actor improvise that, or you wrote that language in with the Shakespearean language.
In some cases, there were maybe a few lines where we added, or I said, say some of this, just sort of, fill in a scene. But I let there are people who are in that troupe, especially people like Susanna, who plays Lear, who's a genius.
Genius.
She just is so good at taking verse. And because, a lot of Shakespeare, especially Merry Wives, is in prose. So it's easier to it's not, verse is the one that's more rigid, but she's great at taking verse even and just making it sound like it's coming out of her brain and she doesn't even bastardize the verse, but it's just adding in little ticks and little things that are modern. And I just let actors run with that. And it just makes you feel like it almost fools you into thinking you're actually listening to something that might not be Shakespeare, but it really is Shakespeare.
And that's my next question is, because if you're so into language, for me, who don't know those plays, some people come knowing all these Shakespeare plays. Yeah. I come and I listen and I watch and I go, oh, it's intention. I know everything from intention. So in many ways, the language to me, it's filtered through intention in some way.
Totally.
And I think, do you think your audiences know Shakespeare when they come? I'm hoping that anybody could come to these shows.
Some do, some don't. I mean, it's amazing when, like when we've run some of the most popular Shakespeare plays, like our Hamlet or Twelfth Night, stuff like that. A lot of people come who've never seen those plays. We always think, oh, everyone's seen it, so we can do this or that. It's not true. There's always tons of people who have not seen these things. And I think you have to care about that. Like you got to tell the story, but no, I think you're right. Like the intentions, everything. And if an actor really knows what they're saying and why they're saying it, the intention's there, but you have to take the time to figure out, what does all this mean and how do I say it to sound like that?
Right.
That's everything.
Yeah. And it's not just, first of all, can we go back? What is your attraction to the classics? I mean, of course, we all get taught them and you have an MFA or whatever. What was it? You come out of college and you go, this is what I want to do. I want to create my own troupe. Because you act in these too. You act and you direct. Yeah,
I've acted in most of the Bedlam plays, but I'm kind of cutting back on that a little because it's just so hard. But it adds so much stress in everyone's lives. But I always loved Shakespeare just because I fell in love with it in college. I just love the language. I love they're universal in terms of their themes and plots, and the language. It's so fun to act. It's just like there's nothing like it. But I'll tell you something really funny and stupid. It's like when you start a theater company and you have no money, you have to find, nobody really knows who you are. So it's not like big playwrights are throwing new work at you saying, please do my play. Right. So, and because the playwright's dead, there are no royalties. I mean, it's public domain. So, it doesn't cost, you can do anything with it. I mean, it also, when you're starting out, is a financial thing, which is kind of stupid, but it is. It is.
And that brings me to my next question. The role of an artistic director. Some of my audience doesn't know anything about this. So you're kind of like director, actor, and artistic director, which doesn't it mean you represent the troupe of Bedlam?
Yeah, I mean, an artistic director of any theater is just the person who kind of, you are basically, your job is to choose the material that you're going to produce and staff it, cast it, pick the designers, and sort of craft the year. And then you are also kind of the face of the theater. But, usually, at least if you've been running and you can have that person, you have a managing director who takes care of the financial side, who's doing budgets and help, and then a development director who helps raise money. all that stuff. But the artistic director is really kind of in charge of the art and decides what plays to do. That's really the only perk.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm first of all, I'm so excited. If anybody goes and sees any of Bedlam's shows in New York, you're in for a treat. They're staged in odd places all over the place, and like Eric said, the immediacy of the audience is just amazing. But what made you say Bedlam? Because Bedlam to me, says that it's wild uproar and confusion. But I looked it up in the dictionary. That's what it says. It says a scene or a state of wild uproar and confusion.
Yeah. Well, that certainly felt like some of the rehearsals of New York Animals, if you'll remember. But not necessarily in support of the art, but that was, But it was the person who founded the company with me, Andrus Nichols, we were trying for months to come up with the right name. We had all these lists, and she was down in the village somewhere, and she called me and she goes, "Oh my gosh, there's this sign that says Bedlam. That should be the name of our company." And I thought, "Oh my gosh, that's a great name." And then she goes, "Oh no, that's not what the sign says. It says something else." And we laughed. And then we both said, "Yeah, but that still should be the name of our theater." And it just so happens that, the insane asylum in London in Shakespeare's day was called Bedlam. And people actually used to go, and stand outside the gates and stuff and the fences and watch like the mentally ill in the place as sort of entertainment. And so Bedlam kind of fit in a lot of ways, especially with sort of classic material. And there's the word Bedlam is in like King Lear like 5 times or something. But so there were a lot of reasons it kind of felt right. And also I do embrace that in rehearsal. Like there's this, with just kind of going in, not necessarily knowing where it's going or where our story's going to take us, even when it's an old play, not knowing how it should end in a way, and like letting rehearsals let us sift through a lot of crazy choices, throw a lot of stuff at the wall, and then start kind of going from there, not walking in with everything solved and every idea. So the actors are just my little robots.
Right. And, when you take I have to show, this whole thing about actors in motion. Most of these theaters, I can't even describe it because it's so good. Okay. So look at some of these pictures. So this was Hedda Gabler, which I saw. I don't know if you can see these.
Right.
So clearly you can see them. But, your wife, can we just talk about your wife for a minute? Help.
Yeah, she's amazing. Yeah.
This is one of the great actors of all time. Seriously, They did Winter's Tale. They just celebrated 10 years. Bedlam just celebrated 10 years. Yeah. Persuasion, The Crucible, St. Joan, Hamlet. Look at all these. Uncle
There's
Rum,
a great trailer on there for Sense and Sensibility. Where
let's do that. Where is that? Where is that?
I think if you go to Sense and Sensibility there on the show page and then scroll down, there should be a video, like a really good trailer that's fun and just shows kind of the movement of it and stuff like that. Like
let's watch that. Okay,
I don't think that might be it. Try it. If not, it's on the video page. But that's a cool video just because you kind of, there it is. But everything was on wheels.
Please, applause. I can't take it. Let me just tell you, I need to tell you something. Okay, look there's my my cheat sheets for you. I have to tell you something, Eric. I saw that. That was it. Sense and Sensibility. That's what I saw. I know this is a small detail to you, but you're such a detailed person. The way everybody went to bed, standing up in a bed, and the bed created behind them, and the pillow was on their head, and everybody was just standing with a bed behind them.
Yeah.
Those are the things I love. Yeah. What was the concept of wheels for? Besides the fact that it was an easy way for people to get around, but was there any metaphor there? What was going on?
Well, no, I mean, I always, almost in all my shows, have some stuff on wheels just because it feels easy. I like things to kind of, I don't want to see a lot of scene changes or things that like people, like furniture move, it needs to like, move along. And when I first read that script, there's so many little scenes, like almost every page, it's a new location. They're in a garden, or they're in this sitting room, or now they're at, out in the park, and tons and tons of locations. And I thought, my gosh, this thing really has to flow. And so I just asked the set designer, said, well, I'm just going to put everything on wheels, I just asked for a couple doorways and, 10 chairs and a couple big tables and a little table, and went for 5 or I think we had 6 or 8 windows, tall rolling. And then I just stage the show with those things so it could just flow. And even oftentimes the scene changes, the furniture was catching up to the next scene, or it's flowing, and it was just so cool.
And that's what I loved. You'd see that, but also if you look to the left, everybody was getting makeup on and for the next scene. And,
the dressing rooms were on stage,
So we were, in essence, part of it. I mean, we were part of it. Yeah. And that was a gym. It was called the Gym at some place. What was it called?
Gym at Judson.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I did a production of the Scottish play once, and we actually did three different productions of it in different cities, but this was not a Bedlam production, but the audience was actually on wheels. And so the audience was constantly being moved and reconfigured and stuff. So we have plans to do that in the city, but that's to come. But it was cool. So sometimes even the audience is on wheels.
All right, so here's my thing about this. I want to talk a little bit about how relevant it is that Shakespeare deals with gender roles all the time.
Yeah.
And cross-dressing and what we would have called cross-dressing. People, it's so natural now, isn't it? The way you can cast, the way, just everything. It just blew me. That's what I got blown away by watching the 3 episodes that I watched. I thought, oh my, it's time.
Yes, big time. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, in Shakespeare's time, women were not allowed to be on stage, so men had to play the women roles. Right. And often it was young boys who were playing the women, right? And that's just the way it was. And, I just did a production, a workshop production for a couple weeks. They were running for a couple weeks, Richard II and Henry IV, parts 1 and 2 at Theater for New Audience in Brooklyn. Right. And I knew it was all made to look like a rehearsal because people were on book, and and it was in the round. I wanted it to be really simple and just make it about the text. And, I had obviously women playing men and men playing women, and older people playing younger and younger playing older. And we really had a chance there to just mix it up and let the text do everything and let the audience's imagination flow. And audiences, we underestimate them a lot, but that's what they want. They want to use their imagination, and they definitely want to see a bunch of people on stage that look like them, that look like, you're looking around at the subway. It doesn't, it is time.
It is time. And, one of the things that I love that you did in the 3 episodes is people are texting on iPhones in Shakespeare's speak.
Yeah, I know. It's so dumb. Yeah.
No, it's not so dumb. It's so funny. Yeah. Because that's one of the things that you do so well. So I bursted out laughing when I saw that. I said, no. The other thing I bursted out, how in Shakespeare plays, there's always messengers.
Yes.
And you had a giant, panda bear, delivering messages.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah, I know. But yes, in that series, which you can get on our website if you go to
Oh,
Bedlam
yes. Plug your website and please
Yeah.
tell them how to get the series.
Well, the
Please.
website's bedlam.org, and then you go on, there's Bedlam TV, and you can get those three. I mean, we hope to make more of them, but it's some really great actors. And you also see what you can do with Shakespeare and how malleable it is. But there's some wonderful trans actors in there, and it's just a really great group of people from all kinds of walks of life, and it's a cool cast. So, you know.
The thing that I didn't realize was how funny Shakespeare was, and
Yeah.
that you've got to
Yeah.
understand, the Merry Wives of Windsor, he found a trashy hotel to
Yeah.
tell,
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
tell the story from. Can we just talk about the location so when people go and watch, how did you, in the middle of a pandemic, find these locations? I mean, what did you have a budget and then everything got
Yeah.
shut down? Because you had a lot of locations.
Yeah, we did. We lucked out because we found a place in Queens that we were looking at for the bar, because there's like a kind of a dive bar that is in the play a lot, or in the show a lot. And we were looking at the bar, and the guy goes, "Oh, next door, I've got this whole empty catacomb of rooms and offices and stuff that we also do shoots and stuff. You should look around." And we walked through this place, all these different floors of rooms and old dentist offices and all kinds of places. And we're like, this can be like 2/3 of our locations in this one building. So we got a really good deal on it and totally lucked out. And then the rest of the stuff we did up in the Hudson Valley. I live in Cold Spring, so I knew this area, and we did it like in Newburgh. There's a lot of that Windsor Hotel is in New Windsor, which is right by Newburgh and close to me. So all the actors came up, our crew, and we did like half the shoot up here in like some different places we rented, and the motel. And it was good, and everybody was really good to us. So that's how we were able, and we put everybody up, and we just did it. I mean, in another hotel, not that one where we shot, but
Amazing.
yeah,
Okay. So I want to go back because it's great to talk about your theater trip. It's great to talk about how brilliant your wife is, how brilliant the actors are. But I also want to talk about you, because I don't, where did you grow up?
in Idaho mostly. I was born in Virginia, but I grew up in Idaho. But we kind of went back and forth a lot.
And do you have anybody else in your family that's into acting or directing? Nobody.
No, not really. No.
So what did they think when you said, "This is what I'm doing"?
Well, when I was younger, when I went to college and I decided I was going to be a theater major, my dad was like, "Really? Do you think you want to have another major too, or is that really what you want to do?" And because for him that kind of came out of the blue, but then he came to some shows and he kind of got it. He's like, "Yeah, I get it," and he was, in the end, he was always proud that I just sort of stuck to because I don't know about you, but it's different. The music business at first, I guess. Well, maybe not. Everybody, has to do their odd jobs or their day jobs for all those things. But when I was young, and even right out of grad school, I worked in a lot of restaurants. I waitered a lot in New York and that stuff. So, you kind of do that. But if you stick to it long enough, you mold a career,
I know. I want people to hear that, because you come to New York, you do. Listen, I was a cold caller on Wall Street. Okay. A cold caller on Wall Street for Lehman.
You were amazing at that.
I was unbelievable.
I bet you were amazing.
I was
you could
like,
sell anything.
You're right. I can sell anything.
Come on.
All I had to do was schmooze with the clients. It was like Bruno Bic from Bic Pens. And I did it because you know what? Unlike you, I think is incredible that you could be a waiter. I knew I'd be crappy at it. I knew that my phone voice was very good.
Oh, yeah. You have a great voice. Yeah. And is there an expression like selling igloos in hell or something? Like you could probably,
they'd say in a pizza parlor, they'd say, "You don't understand. We don't need pencils." I said, "I know you don't, because you'd be calling me." Now listen what we have today. I had sales techniques. Okay. And by the way, during this, we only have a few more minutes, but if anybody would like to ask questions of Eric, please feel free in the Q&A to ask or to raise your hand to come up. All right. So what I want to talk about is the concept of mashup. This is what I think is so brilliant. In music, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
When musicians do a mashup, what they're looking for is elements in both that can weave together, and you can go in and out of it. And there's a sense of irony, but there's also a real sense of incredulousness that these two things go together.
Yeah.
So can you just give us what two things you did together in rep as you did these? Because some people don't know. Just tell us.
Well, when we've done rep, we've done rep where, like, we started out doing rep, which means like you're doing more than one play at a time, but we were doing them, separately. Like one night you'd see St. Joan, the next night Hamlet.
But same actors, right?
Actors doing two plays. And that kept getting, it's very expensive to do that for a small company, any company, because you have to pay the actors a lot more than you normally would. And plus you're doing two plays and, it's more expensive. So, and it really got kind of cost prohibitive, but it's so fun to do and it was good for us. But we stopped doing it. We couldn't do it every single season. We did it our first 3 seasons. I mean, our first 3 groupings. It was Hamlet, St. Joan, then it was Sense and Sensibility and Seagull, but Sense and Sensibility took off on its own long commercial run and went all over the country. And then we did 2 different 12th nights in rep with each other, same cast. And then we didn't do it for a while. And then I wanted to do it again. And we were going to do Uncle Vanya and Romeo and Juliet in rep. And it was so cost prohibitive. And then I was also kind of thinking, I don't know if I'm as excited. I don't know, that something happened. And I just thought, you know what? I'm just going to make one play out of them or just mush them together and kind of go in and out of Uncle Vanya and then back and Romeo and Juliet. And I wasn't really interested for the group that we had and stuff in doing like the big sword fights and all that stuff in Romeo and Juliet. And I've directed that play before. So really we ended up with one play called Uncle Romeo, Vanya, Juliet. And it was 5 actors and it was all of Uncle Vanya, which we did our own adaptation, but it was the whole play with a good amount of Romeo and Juliet mixed in, sort of the juicy stuff, that. And so what Romeo and Juliet became was sort of the inner psyche of all the people in Uncle Vanya. And it was really fun. And, it was very experimental. Not everybody loved it. A lot of people really did love it, but we've done some fairly experimental stuff that people either loved or hated. But that actually, they were the perfect things to mash up. They're all the themes of unrequited love and, it was cool. It was fun. So but again, there you have an example of sort of like economics. I'm like, wow.
Yeah, you always make do. We were in the New Ohio Theater downstairs in a blank place.
Yeah.
And you got a grand piano. The designer was unbelievable. He made it into like a club.
Yeah.
With lights.
That was so beautiful.
Wasn't that beautiful?
Yeah. It was.
Do we have a picture of that on the website?
It is there. Yeah. If you go to under the shows, get into that show, there is a picture of it, but it was gorgeous. I mean, he completely transformed it to a club, to a beautiful kind of New York,
a beautiful New York club. Yes.
When you were at the piano and,
I was at the piano. We made, I remember my picture and the person was singing, Joe Lampert. Amazing.
You and
made
Joe
it to the New York Times.
were just like phenomenal in that. And that whole band. You guys
here it is. Here's our picture. And is there any other videos on the site that we can go to?
Well, there are. Isn't it pretty? The lighting and it was beautiful. The table.
Made it into a club. Who is our incredible John McDermott? Right.
John McDermott designs our.
Amazing.
Yeah, he's fantastic.
So I really want to go to. If there's any other show we can just show a little trailer to.
There might be on the Crucible page. I don't know if it's loaded in there, but we have a couple really great trailers of the Crucible. The Crucible was a pretty big hit for us, but I don't know if they're actually on that site. And then there are other like interview stuff, but they're not. I mean, it's like they're not. They're probably not.
I know. I've watched you in interviews and. It's so funny because you have a responsibility to your theater troupe, but I want to tell you, you're one of the funniest people. I want to talk about humor in these pieces. Seriously.
Okay.
I feel like what you do is curated humor on some level. You're like
Yeah.
you're in the territory of accessible irony. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Like
that's a good way to put it. I've never heard it said like that, but that's amazing. Curated humor.
it's curated
Yeah.
humor
Yeah, yeah.
because it's not like how else can I describe it? And sometimes it washes over you as I'm watching the pieces.
Yeah.
It starts to wash over me that I'm perceiving differently than I normally do when I go to theater.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think the troupe, the way you work with your actors makes people feel that way. I'm just saying from an audience point of view, and I'm also
That's
a
right.
performer. So I find
Yeah,
myself, yeah, it's like
that's interesting.
surprise. And when you
Yeah.
did the immediacy concept of audience and actors, you also managed to do it virtually.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you have some scenes where the actors are looking straight into the camera
Yeah.
at
Oh, yeah.
us, and
Yeah.
they're like Shakespeare asides.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I was like, he did it.
Yeah. No, that's a good thing about the humor because we always try to make like the first, the Crucible. If you go see it, there's like 4 acts, right? Like there's 2 halves, but he wrote 4. It's a 4-act structure, and
I
the
know.
first act is hysterical, but it never feels funny to me. But it's funny. I mean, on the page because these people are just out there, right? I mean, this is like religious fervor to the nth degree, but also it's all politics and it's infighting and who took whose land and this and that. It's not just about witchcraft. It's about like, oh no, I'm gonna screw that person because that was my grandpa's land and they took it from me, whatever. So it's a whole community of infighting. But the first act is funny, and it really was funny in our version, and people were surprised at how much they were laughing. But why not? Why does the tragedy have to be a tragedy right when you walk in? We don't have to know who's going to die or that it's obviously going to turn out really bad. Let's go on a journey at least, so that it's not depressing the whole time. But there are plays like St. Joan is funny even after she's burned. It's funny. You have to find the humor in it, but. You're right. I mean, when you're in the rehearsal room, all you know is like what makes you laugh, and you
That's
just
right.
kind of go there. Yeah. That's all
Yeah,
you
you have redefined my quote unquote sense of humor.
Yeah.
Because I think humor is a sense. I do. And I think
Yeah.
you have done that. I want to know about actors when you were in rep. Were they like tired as hell? They had to memorize, they had to like know 2 distinctly different plays. Is that also a reason why you mashed up? Because these actors like, what? 3 days a week I have to do this, the 3 days a week I have to do that.
A little bit. I mean, that mashup was crazy because we really found it. We were devising it in the room, and we had a lot of rehearsal weeks I planned, and we really just devised it. So we had so many versions and what was going to go where, and I let it really be a group thing, and we worked. But so that's but yeah, doing rep can be exhausting. But sometimes one of them's not quite as hard as the other, or and you feel like you're actually getting a break doing one when there's one that's very athletic, or but yes, it's a lot to juggle, but it's also fun for actors because you're like, you get to kind of go into another world each, you're because of switching it up. It keeps you on your toes a little more.
And now you're exploring this sensibility into new plays, which I'm so excited about. Tell us what is coming up. Because that great actress, Zuzanna, she wrote something this season, right? That you're going to do?
We've been workshopping a play that her and a friend of hers named Deb Knox wrote. They wrote it actually 10 years ago. And then she gave it to me about 5 years ago or something. And I read it and I thought, oh my gosh, this is great. And it was 1 act, and she had ideas about a second act, but cut it. And I said, no, I think this needs a second act. And then we did workshops with it, and we did one in the pandemic on Zoom, and finally we're producing it. So we're in rehearsals for it now. It's called Fall River Fishing, and Zuzanna and Deb, the 2 writers, are in it. They're both fantastic. And then Susanna, my wife, who you've talked up, is in it. And Susanna and Zuzanna, who are both in that Vanya Romeo thing, they're so good together on stage. You can't take they're just riveting. And then a couple guys who named Tony Torn and Jamie Smithson are as well. So it's a great cast of five. It's hysterical.
Can you tell us what it's about or at
Yeah, it's
all?
basically the first act. It's basically the story. It's set in the world of Lizzie Borden, and but Deb and Zeus have basically taken these characters, the maid and Lizzie, and put their own sort of life stories or their own kind of emotional things and stories into these characters. So it's not really about Lizzie, except that it's in her house and the murders happen. Like it's in that world, but it comes out in the language of Zeus and Deb. So you're going to see a period piece, but it's it's all modern spoken. It's hysterical. And then suddenly in Act 2, it goes into a weird world of sort of Doll's House, and Sharon Tate shows up, and it's nuts, but it's really funny. It's got a lot of like heart and pathos, and it explores a lot of issues, like people's issues of all kinds of stuff, addiction and food and relationships with your parents, and this awful things sometimes our parents say to us, or at least in her her life. And it's really, really good. And then right after that, we open another show. These are not in rep. It's two different casts, but a show called The Good John Proctor, which is 4 women, adult women, playing the 4 young girls in Crucible. It's kind of a prequel to Crucible. And it felt right because we had done the Crucible. It's a brilliant script, brand new play. It's so funny and so cool to see the girls' point of view about what's happening in their world, and what's happening in a village like that, and with those men, and we kind of grew up thinking John Proctor's this hero, but he's had an affair. He was having in the play, he's having an affair with a 14-year-old girl. It's like, hello. So you get the point of view from these girls, and it's fantastic. It's a brilliant play. So those are the two that we're putting up in succession now.
And how do you choose? Because I noticed that I'm obviously a composer and musician too. And I just noticed that you choose your music so well for these things.
Yeah. I mean, we have, we work with, back before when we were first starting for quite a while, I would just kind of do the sound myself and stuff. But we always for the last many years, we have really brilliant sound designers that come on, or composers, and they the last few seasons we've used a phenomenal sound designer named Jane Shaw, who is just brilliant. And so it's really these designers who work with me, and they're just
Can we give a shout out to the Bedlam TV guy? Who was that did all that great music for the 3 episodes?
Yes. He actually also did the music for, or he did the opening music for Rome, the HBO series.
Wow.
Yeah, his name is Aman. He's just really, really, really fantastic. He lives in Los Angeles, and we just had every time he would send me a demo or a new piece for certain whatever scenes he was scoring, it was always perfect. He was, first of all, he's an amazing person, but that music I thought was so good for the series. He's just brilliant. I mean, it wasn't it was exactly what I wanted, but I think it's not what people would expect for a Shakespeare series.
Yes, and that brings me to the other thing, the costume. There is like that Bedlam TV thing was like costumes of today,
I wanted to set it in this very seedy kind of almost Coen Brothers world of like the business of, like with Susanna as Lear, that it was sort of a family business of doing a lot of illegal things, and so that it kind of also fit a lot of the underworld feel that I think Merry Wives can have, and in order to join those worlds, it just felt like it wanted to be like this sort of, I don't know, not a Sopranos kind of a thing, but
it was
not far from that. Yeah, like an underworld kind of
And to see
you
Lear
know,
as a woman, I mean, it was
yeah,
another whole thing for me,
yeah,
especially that incredible Susanna
yeah. She's
actress.
amazing.
People, please, I think it's for the 3 episodes that you charge maybe $12.99 or something. I don't know what,
Something like
but
that.
it
Yeah,
was just so good.
yeah.
So, all right. So you're not allowed to tell the rest of the season, but you're doing those 2 things, right?
Well, those two things, but then well, in Boston we're doing Angels in America. We're doing
Oh,
Yeah. We're doing part 1 in the spring. It'll run in April and May, and then we're doing parts 1 and 2 in Boston in the fall.
oh my
But
God, my Boston peeps, please, you got to
yeah,
see this. I know it's going to be unbelievable. Where
yeah,
in Boston? Where,
it'll be in
where?
Cambridge at Central Square Theater, which is where most of we pre-pandemic we were doing something in Boston every year. We have a real following in Boston. It's like a second home for Bedlam, so that's where we're doing it. We've taken a lot of shows there. In fact, we developed the Crucible there and brought that back. But so Angels in America, it's April, May part 1, and then in the fall, like September, October for both parts, and then we're hoping the fall is going to be another world premiere of a musical that is set in East Nashville, called Music City, and then I'm
That's
hoping
great.
a certain host of a show is going to be in it. So we'll see what we're doing.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, first of all, Eric, I hear your screaming kids behind you.
Oh,
And
you
it's,
can hear them down. They're actually
but can I just
downstairs.
tell you, I know people don't like to talk about their personal life, but can I just ask you, these are 3 of the greatest kids. I have met these children.
Oh yeah.
I don't know how with all this you had time to have
Oh,
3 children.
it's hell. This is the insane asylum. This is the Bedlam. This is where, it's hellacious. No, obviously I love it, but yeah, it's hard with 3, especially when, like, if we're all doing, like, if Susanna and I are in a show together as we were in the fall, that was really hard. This is a little easier because she's in the show and I'm just directing it.
I
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah, we have a 5-year-old, one that just turned 4, and one that just turned 2.
And
the
they've got the
5-year-old
greatest names.
Yeah, Francis, Bertie, and Hank. So, it's fun. It's fun.
Well, first of all, I just want to say, everybody down there who stayed and watched us, thank you so much. I just feel like, you're this mission of this Bedlam theater troupe, I want to call it a troupe, is just, I don't know. Even though we haven't worked together in like 9 years, every time I see you do something, we try to show up. We did the 10-year anniversary. I sang at the 10-year anniversary.
Yeah, it was so fun. Oh my God.
I know. It was amazing. Please, anybody who is visiting New York and in Boston, go to see anything that Bedlam does. Can we please give Eric Tucker a round of applause for coming here today on his day off?
Oh, yeah, well.
On his day off to do this. I'm giving you applause right now. Thank you. Got my nifty little applause thing. And I want everybody to know, Bedlam, Bedlam, Bedlam. I think Instagram is at Bedlam, Bedlam, Bedlam. That's Instagram.
Yeah, that's our Instagram. Yeah.
That's your Instagram. Bedlam.org is down there in the rolling thing. And go to the website, check everything out. Eric, you are the fantastic. What would you recommend to someone who really is starting out? I like to always ask people this, and they have this love for theater and they want to create in an entrepreneurial way like you did. Just start and just do it on a shoestring. Yeah. Like, what would you say?
Well, I think that for one, like I think if you just persevere, if you know this is what you want to do and it's the only thing you can do. I think you have to be open-minded and say, look, there's no shame in having day jobs and doing things that you have to do to make money, as long as you're still, because, everyone, you have to loosen your definition of success. We're not all going to be, Tom Cruise and in Hollywood blockbuster movies. You have to, if you love the craft, whether it's acting or making music, dancing, whatever, You just have to stick with it. And if that's fulfilling to you, then if you stick with it, you will make a career. But it might take some time, and it might involve always doing other, I know so many actors who work mostly all the time, but they still teach. You've gotta do other things, and that there's no shame in that. You bring all your talents to it. Acting, and then I think you have to know, if you're an actor, it's two jobs really. One is, if you booked a job and then you're learning lines and showing up at rehearsal, that's one part of the job. But the other job that's completely separate is getting the job.
Yes.
The networking and the auditioning and all that is a job, and you don't have to like that, but it is a job, and you have to kind of keep that, you have to just do it and not necessarily love that, but just say, okay, this is part of it.
I just want to say that is an incredibly useful thing you just said, because the shame in having a quote day job, it's ridiculous.
Totally. And you can have a day job. You can say, look, I work in a restaurant, or I do calls, or I work at a call center, or whatever it is. I'm someone's assistant, and still say, I'm an actor, or I'm a musician. There's no shame in that. In fact, you should be saying, if someone says, what are you? Say, I'm an actor. Or you got to put it in the universe. You have to claim it. I know so many people who are afraid to say, well, I'm an actor. Well, not really, because I'm working here, but I'm trying. No, you're an actor. If you're an actor, that's in your soul, and you have to own it. You don't just, who cares if you're also waitering? Yeah. I mean, we all know lawyers who have side jobs or going to law school, you know what I mean.
I do know what you mean. And that, I think, is it. If you're an actor, it's in your soul. We did it. Episode 42, Bedlam's artistic director, Eric Tucker. Please give him a round of applause. Thank you for taking your day off and coming to us for Barsha. You are the greatest.